Okay, so first thing we're going to do for this module, which is research and reference, is I'm going to do something that I do all the time, which is a redesign. Because redesign can be used as a practice tool, kind of like for character design. You kind of don't have to start out from zero. You can start from something and kind of take it somewhere else, and it can be fun, and it can teach you a lot about like what makes a good design in the first place. So, I've always loved this design. I see it all the time. And I don't know her. She doesn't know me. But I love this design. I'm going to start with Draculaura because I love her hair. And I think that is something that really carries her design. There are different aspects of a redesign I think people kind of miss. So I'm going to tell you what I see and what I'm going to keep and leave and all that good stuff. So first thing I want to keep is her hair. Like I mentioned, me and her got the same bangs. So I'm going to keep. I think the best part of her hair is the highlights. So I think I'm keeping the highlights. I'm not sure if the pigtails carry as much weight as the color and the structure of like the highlight and everything actually does, but I think I might also keep the pigtail. I think her clothes are interesting. I think what I want to keep is that she has structure to her vest. So let's see. Let's write this down. So bangs, bangs, highlight, job, and we can put the pigtails in there. Pigtails. I think also up here as well is something I think we should keep is the eyes. Eyes. Just how big they are, I think carries a lot of weight to her design. I don't think actually the structure of her head or anything, because all the girls in Monster High, I'm assuming, have the same head shape or similar head shape in this particular edition and design. So the structure doesn't really matter. That's kind of something that we can move away from. I don't think I've ever noticed that she has safety pins for earrings, but it's good to note. So I think that's something we can also not care about too much. It doesn't hold weight in her design as much as something like the highlights in her hair. So, let's see. Let's keep those pointy ears, eyes, ears. Vest, structure. I honestly, okay. So we're gonna give her a skirt or a dress because that's something that I see that she wears. I like, opposed to maybe like pants or something more masculine. We're gonna keep her high feminine look. Her silhouette, I don't think carries much weight. I think what's more holds more weight is her little collar. So we can put collar, and her little wrist frills. I do love a mini skirt, so maybe we'll keep that. But I think overall, anything else is not that important. I think the most important part is literally everything in this area. So now that we've broken down her design, we can kind of explore what we can do, and I'll also do some research about what can I do like with a vampire. So vampires are Victorian usually, so we can look up Victorian stuff. I'll pick some references and return about what I've gotten.
1 hour later.
I have returned. So I did a couple things. Like I went on a couple of fashion archive websites and I looked up some papers that I will link somewhere about Gothic and Lolita and Victorian fashion. Um, I do know about the medieval revival of the 1970s, which I also was going to apply to this as a kind of juxtaposition between the Gothic revival and or Victorian fashion, which is a medieval revival in the early 1900s. So that I'm being a nerd, but basically, I think the smartest thing is just to go off of Gothic fashion. In the Victorian revival in Lolita. So I do want to make this a little bit more like unique because I'm sure there is a bunch of renditions of her and her little Lolita getup because that's the smartest thing to do. Um, but these are the references I've collected online. I'm kind of digging the pigtail situation over here. I like the silhouette of this and the I don't know if anyone can see that. Hello. The silhouette of the different clothes that I've chosen. So I'll kind of just like keep bouncing back and forth. I think at this point I'll probably shut up and do the design and kind of play around with what I've collected. I will put like the reference sheet and this, I guess, mood board kind of thing I put together down somewhere. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet and redesign Dracula with what I've collected. So this is the sketch we have of Draculaura so far. Quick tip though, when it comes to a design or a redesign, it's best to have a purpose or a strong direction in mind. Like with this design, I wanted to create like a modern or trendy look that had historical significance in relation to her archetype. So coming up with a prompt can kind of push a relatability aspect to your viewer, and it gives you an extra mile to work with when it comes to research and finding something interesting to look at, and pushing your boundaries when it comes to character design. All right, this is the finished product of our redesign. I kind of took a style that was close to Monster High so I could do a little bit more exploring when it came to color. Um, Even though the silhouette is very similar, which is fine. I actually really enjoy the silhouette and I didn't even clock that it was like so iconic, like, but I really really like it. So I kept it. The collar, I decided to go for something more pointy and like aggressive to coexist with the fact that she's a vampire. So kind of like a little bit of context added to the design. But it is super close still. Because it is kind of very close with the original design, I decided to do some sort of offshoot of the coloring just so it does come off as like original rather than me copying one for one the exact coloring style. Um, but yeah, this is what we got. It's very it's kind of like a mid between my style and the Monster High style. It is a little bit like chippier, I guess, on my end than what I usually draw. Also, the heavy outline, I decided to match that with the original just because it's like more of that like dolly, like uh, doll company thing that they do. Like Bratz doll does it, Barbie does it, Monster High does it. So yeah, I wanted to match that. But yeah, this is what we came up with. Hopefully, you guys got some sort of semblance of idea of how to come up with a redesign, kind of like extra things that you can do. Like I said, silhouette is important when it comes to a redesign. Watching the colors is important. A couple things that I suggest if you're going to change the silhouette, then don't change the color scheme. And if you're going to change the color scheme, then you can feel more. You should probably do something that's closer to the original silhouette so people can still um, recognize what they're seeing. Um, if you don't, it's fine too. If you know what you're doing. Um, but if you want to be specific to the original content, that's something that you could think about doing. Anyway, there we go. There's our girl. Wow, user racquetball Sasha. Sasha, where did you find those really cool references that you shared with us? Please tell us. Not Pinterest. Not Pinterest. I'm just kidding. You can use Pinterest if you want, I guess. But there are tons of different ways that you can find other references online. So if you're also tired of the AI leggings, I can tell you a couple ways how to navigate the internet and finding a reference that you might like. With these references that I collected for the redesign, I decided to go with something like a fashion archive. Typically, when it comes to finding things online, a fashion archive is a great place to get your information from, especially if you're looking for a specific date, time, textile, era of fashion. This is what I typically go with if I'm doing some heavy research on something like I did with this one. So I just wanted it to be well researched and curated so I can be correct. Even if you're not looking for something specific, Fashion Archive would be a really great resource for you to look for some fashion inspiration. Not only is it very well documented, sometimes it can be very up to date with exactly what you're looking for, especially as from a recent runway or a recent publication. You can also find things from the past that are referenced in modern fashion that is in the zeitgeist again or something. Yeah, so I super recommend going into fashion archives for inspiration and resources. Speaking of a place where you can find old stuff you need references for, easily you can find references for fashion or even some things if you need a reference an old art piece or a statue in a museum archive. I know everybody can't get to a museum all the time to take pictures of their favorite references and pictures and find inspiration in person, but good thing there's an entire job for it in a website that they put it on. So you can just go on the different museum archives they have available to you online and look up things like that to get inspiration from as well. This is especially if you are looking for something that is from a specific time period. I specifically go to these archives if I was looking for inspiration on these textiles and silhouettes. And even if you like, you can also look up an article. You can learn something about how things were made and why they were made a specific way, what historical context they have for at the time, or how it can affect us today in our own clothing. These are different things you can do as well. But what if I need a reference for something from fantasy, something that's not real? Well, do I have a place for you? Other than fantasy media, which you can look up as well, I recommend looking through Google and get a targeted answer rather than Pinterest, because then you start to get things that are AI sometimes or something that could be manipulated from the original media. You can easily go through a place where people buy in person, which is these Renaissance fair type websites that people go to buy costuming. A lot of costuming websites have a lot of great resources for fashion. Even if it's not historically accurate, it is inspired by some historical events or time periods, and it can be great if you're looking to diversify some of the clothing that you draw in a fantasy context. It even comes with different kinds of fantasy. It's like sci-fi as well. You have so many different options to go through when it comes to these websites too. As it comes to learning new things, I can understand if people would rather look for one place for one thing, as these are kind of spread out throughout the internet. So there is one place that I usually go to if I'm looking for fashion reference and research. Specifically, I go to this channel. It's a very well documented place where I go to if I need any sort of information about silhouette and popular culture as well when it comes to fashion. I find myself just researching it just for fun, even if I don't use it for character design. If you're interested in learning about different types of socioeconomic history, fashion, and context as it comes to design and fashion design, this is a great place to go, especially if you need a name. When it comes to designers, I typically hold back when it comes to designers just because I'm more interested in the shapes and the colors as it comes to clothing. But this is a great place to go to. I absolutely love this channel if you need any sort of historical inspiration. And I know this is a lot more complicated when it comes to research because Pinterest is right there, and it would be very hypocritical of me to kind of throw Pinterest under the bus when I myself used it for this course. So my best tip for you as it comes to using Pinterest is using it almost as a search engine rather than like an endless scroll. Because using it as a search engine, you get a more targeted search when it comes to exactly what you're looking for. When you start clicking on other things and scrolling and clicking on other things and scrolling, you start to lose the thing you were looking for in the first place, which is fine. You can find other fashion places and places for inspiration for art as well as posing and referencing. But I do recommend if you find something you really like on Pinterest is to look into it further. Maybe looking at the link where it came from or doing a reverse Google search to find the source of the art you're looking for instead of enjoying it mindlessly for yourself. Sometimes when it comes to Pinterest, I find it's a little selfish the way it's prompted and the way people post. This is not just because my art was put into AI. I'm just saying this because I don't use Pinterest anymore as a resource. Typically, in a normal day, I wouldn't. Just because I don't want to consume without knowing where the sources of things are from. So that's all I have to say about that. Do what you like. But if you want alternatives to finding and researching for clothing and art, this is how you do it.